Hey everyone, in this video we'll go over function views, what they are and how they work. We'll start with a basic example in the docs, and then we'll go into some more advanced examples including handling a post request with a form. So let's go ahead and get started. So you see here I have my code open to my views.py and right now it's empty. I also have a server running with my starter code, and the code to this will be in the description below. So you can find that link if you want to start right where I'm starting. That will be available to you there. And I also have it running over here on localhost 8000. And I have the docs here open up to writing views and going through some function views in the docs. And this will also be in the description below. We're going to start here with this basic example, and then we'll go into some more advanced examples later on. So first things first, what is a view? Well, you can read this paragraph up here, but generally what it is, you're going to receive a request and return a response. And that response can be anything. It can be HTML, a redirect, a 404, error message. It could be XML, an image, or anything else. And that's what it says right up here at the top. But what we want to do typically is return an HTTP response, or we return a HTML page using a render function that we have down here. So we're going to return something at the end of every view. That's probably one of the most important things that we got to make sure we do. And you can read up here, it also talks about where to put the code. And you can put it anywhere, but typically when you create a Django project, you'll get this views.py file, and that's where you're going to put all your views in. But you could put it somewhere else, but it's much easier and makes more sense to keep it all in one place inside this views.py file. So we're going to put all our views here. So first, I want to start by going through this basic example here, where we get the date time.now and return some HTML and return that to the client. So I'm going to go ahead and start by creating a view. And so since we're talking about function-based views, we're going to create a function to create the view. And later we'll talk about class views where we can create a class. But for this example, we'll create a function. So we create a function in Python with def, and we give it a name. In this case, it'll be current date time. And then in the arguments, we'll pass in requests. This request object is something that comes built in the Django that has the information that we'll need when we return a template to the front end. So most of the time you'll need to pass this in all the time to your templates. And so you always usually want to put this into the arguments of your function views. Now, inside this function, we want to do a couple of things. First, you want to get the current date time. And to do this, we need to import date time. So up here at the top, I'll import date time. Now inside my function here, I'm going to do now equals date time dot date time dot now. And this will get the current time based on the time zone you set in Django. You can see also on this page here, it'll say Django's time zone includes this time zone setting that defaults to America/Chicago. So unless you live there, you probably want to change this. And on this page here is a link where you can click on it and it'll take you to the information on that time zone setting if you want to change that. I'm not going to mess with it. I'm going to leave it how it is for the sake of this tutorial, but that's there if you want to do that. Next, below that, we're going to go ahead and create an HTML variable to put some HTML in. Now, typically, this is not how you will do it when you actually create a view, but for this example, just as a really basic intro, we're going to go ahead and do it here, and then we'll show the better way in a little bit. So we'll create a variable HTML, and this will be equal to an HTML tag, and then inside there we'll put a body. Inside the body tag, we'll go ahead and just put some text. We'll do, we'll go just put it in a p tag, I guess. We'll do it is now, and then we'll put a %s period. We'll close off the p tag, close off the body, and finally close off the HTML tag. And this %s here is just a formatter for Python. So we can go ahead and at the very end here, outside of our string, we can put a % and then put now to take this now variable and pass it into this %s. So this will be replaced with whatever's after this %. In this case, it's whatever's saved in this now variable. So it'll say it is now whatever time it is. Okay, now below that, I'm going to go ahead and return an HTTP response. So back in the docs, this is what they do in this first example is they return this HTTP response, and in there we can just return our HTML. This is one thing you can return. There's other things you can return later, and we'll get to that in a second. But for this first example, we'll return this. And so you'll see here, we need to go ahead and import that. So let's go ahead and do that first. So we'll do from Django.http, so from Django.http, import HTTP response, like that. And then at the very bottom of our view, we'll go ahead and do a return HTTP response and pass in our HTML. And now this is our first really basic view. We're doing some logic and we're returning something at the end of every view because we need to return something after every view. So now we can go ahead and use this. But right now, Django has no idea where we want to, or at what URL we want to go ahead and show this logic at. So what we can do is we can go into our urls.py and we can import our views and add a path for it down here. Now there's other ways we can do this as well. We can also create another file inside of our catalog app and actually add URLs there and add those URLs here. But for this basic example, I'm not going to do that. I'll probably do a video later on going over Django URLs and all the different things we can do there. But for now, we'll keep it all here. So what I'll do is I'll do from catalog.views import current time. And then below this admin route, we'll create another path. And we'll pass in nothing to go to the index page. And then we'll go ahead and pass in current time. And that's all we should need for a really basic view. Let's go now and try this out and see how this works. So we're getting an error. Current time cannot be found. Let's double check that. Oh, I call it current date time. Okay, let's go ahead and just update that. So it's current date time. Okay, and now let's go ahead and try this again. And there it is. It is now this time here. We didn't format or anything, so it shows it's just the string. That looks kind of weird, but it is showing the time based on that time zone correctly. So this is all working great. So now that we have that basic form done, so now let's go ahead and go through a more advanced but a more realistic example. So what we'll do here is instead of returning this HTTP response, we're going to go ahead and return a template. So I'm going to go and comment out that line because we're not going to use it anymore. And instead, I want to go ahead and create a template and pass this now into that template to be able to use that within our HTML there instead of creating a variable here and adding it in. So this will also not be used, so I'll comment both these out. I'll keep these here as reference in case you want to look at them, but we're not going to use those anymore, so you can feel free to delete those as well if you'd like to. But now let's go ahead and return a template. And we can do this by once again returning something. So we'll do return, and we can return this render function. And by default, it's already imported because it's used pretty often, so it's already in here for us by default. Now inside this render function, we need to pass in some arguments. So first we pass in the request object that we pass in as an argument. Next, we need to go ahead and pass in our template name. So in this case, we need to put our app name, so it'd be app/template is how it's going to look. So in this case, our app is catalog. So we'll do catalog/ and then we're going to call this index.html. That'll be our template name. So now we go ahead and create this template. And so by default, Django has a default template location. You can put them that it will automatically pull from. Now, more advanced, you can go ahead and make that change in the settings to go from any other directory and put your templates anywhere you want. But we're not going to do it for this example. We're focusing on views, so we're going to keep it as simple as possible. So inside of my catalog folder, I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder. This folder will be called templates. And now, based off of Django's docs, inside of here, we'll need to create another folder and make that the name of the app. In this case, is catalog. So now if we go into our app, go to templates, and then app name again, now inside of here, if we create our template, this will automatically show up for us. So we'll do index.html. And there we have our index.html template. I'm going to go ahead and just create a very simple HTML page like that. And then I'll go ahead and just do function views as the title. It doesn't really matter. And now inside of here, as a test, I'll type hello world. And we should see the text hello world show up if this all works correctly. And there it is, hello world. So this is all working correctly. It's correctly going to this template and then rendering this on the screen. But now somehow we need to get this value inside of our template. And luckily Django has a built-in way to pass values into our templates from our views. And this is very, very important and it's used all the time. So what we can do here is create a context variable. This will be a Django dictionary. Now, instead of here, we can pass in key value pairs for our template. So in this case, I can pass in a value called, we'll do example, and we'll set that equal to 5, for example. Now, if I were to come in here and pass in context as a third argument, I now have access to this value called example, this variable called example that returns 5 as a value. So then what I can do is I can go inside the index page here, I can put double curly braces. Now inside of here, I can type in my key, in this case was example, and now when I load this page, 5 shows up on the screen. And so we can follow that same logic to go ahead and show this now variable. So I can do here, I'll change this here to now, and I'll set the value also to the whatever is set to this now variable, and now I have access to now inside the template. So what I can do here is I can go ahead and go to my index HTML page here. I'll delete all of this, do double curly braces, and pass in now and save that. And now I can go ahead back here, refresh the page, and there's the time. Now I can go ahead here and also go ahead and say it is now whatever time it is, and add a period to make it look like what it was before. I'm not sure what the exact text was. I can check real quick, I guess. It is now, yeah, that's correct. Okay, so I can go ahead and save that and come back here, and now it looks like it did before, except now it automatically formatted this date for me, which is nice. And so we can do that for any value. We can pass in key value pairs to access them within our context variable. And the variable name is always the key. So just know this is what you need to pass into your template, whatever's on the left-hand side of this. But that's a very simple view there to go ahead and render a template. Now let's go ahead and go into another example, and this time we'll use our models we had before in the previous videos. So in the last few videos, we built all this stuff up going through our Django 3 series. I'm going to go ahead and reuse these models here in our template to show how we can access data from the database and put it in a template. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go and just comment all this out because I'm not going to use this now. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and down here, I'm going to create another function view called index. Once again, we'll pass some request as an argument. And if you look in our database, we can go ahead and see what we have available. So let's go in real quick into the admin page. And you don't need to follow along with this if you don't want to. This will be just so I can see what we have, what we can use for this. So you can see here we have artist objects already in our database. So I'm going to go ahead and use the artist model for these examples. So back in our code, what we'll do here is we can set an artist variable, and this will be equal to artist.objects.get, and pk equals 1. And you can see here that we have a 1 with a primary key of 1 right here. So it should return this test artist inside the view. And we need to go ahead and also import artists from our models. So we'll go up here at the top and we'll say from.models import artist. And now down here, what we can do is just like we did before with our now, we can pass this artist into the template and use that in our template. So I'll create another context variable, set that equal to a dictionary, and we'll say artist, set that equal to artist. Then we'll go ahead and return render, and we'll pass in our request value again, our catalog / index.html to use the same template as before, and then finally pass in our context variable to have access to this artist in our template. Now, instead of using this time value, I'm going to go ahead and replace this and now put something like, I'll say artist. Let's go ahead and put this like an H1 or something. And we'll go ahead and do something like artist name. And then we can access our artist name off of the artist object we passed in. So we passed an artist, which will return this entire object and all these fields. So we do artist.name. We should be able to get the name. So let's try that now. .name and save that. Come back to our templates or our browser here, refresh the page, and it looks like we're getting an error. Oh, I forgot to change our URLs. I was going through that quickly and completely forgot that we changed this. So I'm going to go ahead and make this index and make this index as well. Okay. Now let's go ahead and come back here and try this again. There it is. So artist name and then test artist which is the name of this artist right here. So that's all working great. And once again, we got some data from our database and we pass it into our template through our view logic right here. So that's very useful, and you'll do that a lot in Django, so that's a good thing to know. Okay, finally, the last example we're going to go through today is a form and handling posts and GET requests. So right now, all we're handling is just a GET request. We're going to the page in our browser and we're just going to it. So that's just a GET request. But if we were to hit submit on a form, and now we need to handle post requests. So luckily, Django has some built-in functions and features to handle this for us. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and create a forms.py and create a form and all that stuff right now. This is just focusing on views, so that would be the best way to do this, to create a Django form and pass it into our template. But since we're not worried about forms right now, I'm going to go ahead and just create some inputs, put some names, and then grab the value by the name instead of our views. So this might be a little different than what you've seen before, but that's how we're going to do it here to keep things as simple as possible. So first things first, we need to create a new view. So what we'll do down here is we'll create def sample form. That'll be the name of our view. Pass some requests once again. Now inside of here, what we'll do is we want to go ahead and first check, is it a post request? And then we'll handle some form logic. And else, we're going to go ahead and just return the template itself. So in Django, the way you can check what the request type is, that's all on this request object here. So what we can do here is if request.method is equal to, this will be a string, so it will be a string of posts. If it's a post, we'll print post. Else, we're going to go ahead and just print get. So if this runs right here, we know it's a post request. And if this runs, we know it's a get request. Now we need to render a template, of course, as well. Right now we're not returning anything, and we need to return something. But I don't have a template made yet, so I'm going to go ahead and make that now. So I'll create a new file here, and I'll go ahead and just save this as sample_form.html. Now, I'm not going to type all this out from scratch just to save time. This will also be available in the GitHub repository if you want to copy it there, or just pause the video and copy all of this in right here. All we're doing here is just creating a very simple page here, creating a form, creating our CSRF token, which is required in Django, 2 inputs, one being a name, first name, and one being a submit value. Just as a quick test form for this view. So either copy from the repo or copy in right now. But back in our views, what we're going to do now is we're going to return that template in both cases. So what we'll do here is right here, we will do return render request catalog / and our name of our form, which is simpleform.html. And right now there's no context or anything, so we'll do just that for now. And then once again, we'll return render something here as well. We could go ahead and put this line outside of the if statement if we wanted to, but typically you'll do something different on both the post and the get. So I'm going to go and put it in here as if we're doing something different, even though we're not. But yeah, so then we'll go ahead and once again render the same template, .html. We'll go ahead and save that. Now we need to add this to our URL so we can actually access this view. So if I were to come into the urls.py, I can go ahead and import sample form, I called it, and it'll create another path down here. So path, and this will go to sample-form, and I'll pass in sample form and save that. Now I come here, I refresh this page, nothing changes. But if I were to go to /sample form, I forgot something. Let's put a trailing slash here, like that. Come back here and refresh that page. There we go. So now I have a very simple form here showing up right now. Now, if I were to go back into my terminal here, you see it logged get because it was a GET request. If I were to hit submit and come back here, it's now logging posts because once I submit this form here, I'm now submitting a post request. So I'm now correctly finding and figuring out what method is being sent. So when I first go to the browser, it's running this else because it's a get. And after I submit the form, it's running this post because it's a post. So now let's go ahead and just to finish this off, let's go ahead and just grab this value in here, where we type in here, and print that to the terminal as well. And so since we're not creating a form, what we can do is we can use this request object to get the value that was sent with the post request. So what we can do here is create a new variable. We'll call it first_name. This will be equal to request, the object that we passed in as an argument, dot post dot get. And so we're getting a value from the post request, if that makes sense, so that we're doing there. And the value in this case will be the same as the name in our form. So in our form here, we have a name value set to first name, and make sure it's typed in exactly like this. So we'll go ahead here and type first name to get that value. In this case here, it's just an input text field. So whatever we type in that text field will be saved in this first name variable. Let's go ahead now and just print that out. And now, if I reload this page here, or let's go back here, I refresh this page here, I look at my terminal, it sent get, because it's just a get request. If I were to put in test name and hit submit, come back in our terminal here, and now say test name, and anything I put in here will now log to the terminal. So now we're able to correctly capture that value in here from our post request and show it in our terminal. And we could, of course, show it on the page if we wanted to, but I'm not going to do that here. If you want to go do that as a test to see if you understand this, that's a great way to go do that, but I won't do it in this video. So this is where we'll stop for today for this video. We went over to some really basic views to hopefully give you a good intro on function views and how they work. In the future, we'll go over class-based views and some other things with this as well, but this is a good stopping point for this video. Hopefully you found some of this useful. If you go to the docs here, you can see there's much more we could go over. I'll probably make a video in the future going over these errors. I didn't really talk about exceptions or errors here, but that's something we can go over later if that would be useful to anyone. But yeah, that's it for this video. The code before and after will be in the description below, as well as a link to the docs and everything else that's usually down there. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.